Good evening, Isaac. How are you?
I'm good, Ryan. Good evening. Good evening. Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday. I am, my voice is a little bassier. I've been sick, like really super sick for the past week. So I'm finally on the tail end of it, but my voice still sounds a little weird. So,
It's fine. Happens. Happens to the
yeah.
best of us.
Yes. So we have a guest with us tonight. We're super excited. If you've ever seen any of his video content, if you've ever played any of the games that he's been a part of, Edo is just an awesome member of the board game community. So Edo, how are you? Let me unmute you here.
Hello. Can you hear me all
What's
right?
up? Yes. Yes.
I made this exciting for you guys, so
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
we knew you were running a few minutes late, and so we were like, we'll just have to not chat about it before we go on, and we'll be fine. So
yeah. No, we're doing it live. We're doing it live.
you do so
Thanks for
much
having me,
video
though.
content that I'm sure you're used to. Like, hey, just got to get it done.
Yeah, for sure. My
Thanks
voice
for-
is fine. I just had to call.
Cool. So
Thanks for joining us, Ed.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're all getting off of work and just trying to jump into this tonight. So hopefully we've got some good entertainment for you and some games that we're going to be talking about. So actually, Isaac, you were the one who came up with the topic for tonight. So what we got?
I did. Yeah, we're going to be talking about asymmetrical games, which I think is very timely when we get to talking a little bit about a new game out there for Pencil First. But
Yes.
I like to come up with the weird, off-topic opening questions. And a lot of people just celebrated Easter weekend. And
Yep.
Regardless of whether you celebrate it or not, I know there's Easter baskets and candy, rabbits and all that everywhere. What's your binge candy? Like, what's your forget about my
So
glucose levels.
yeah, and sometimes you have to. I'm huge into gummy stuff. So like whether
Okay.
it's gummy bears or gummy colas or Sour Patch Kids or gummy worms. Like that's probably my go-to in terms of like if I had to pick a candy, it's
Yeah.
just gummy stuff.
Nice.
But like on the chocolate side, I'm a big fan of Reese's Pieces or 100 Grand. But like,
Yeah.
you can get a lot of gummies, and that's where I like to go.
I'm a sucker for the peach rings, the peach O's. When I see the peach O's, I saw them in the store a couple weeks ago, and I was having a rough day. I think a bunch of stuff had gone wrong with work,
Start eating.
and I was just like, I saw the peach O's. I was like, they're $2.50. I don't care. I'm buying them anyway. Snatched them off the shelf. I was like, they're so good.
Swedish Fish, also very good.
Yeah,
go in that direction. But
I just bought Swedish
like
Fish. Have you seen Swedish Fish jelly beans? Have you seen those?
Swedish Fish jelly beans.
Yes.
I feel like since I like Swedish Fish, I feel like my wife or my kids might have bought me something like that.
Okay.
Got a little comment from Chad Elkins over there at 25th Century.
What, 100 grand isn't? I mean, I don't know. I feel like 100 grand has been around forever. I mean, I guess that makes it old school, but I thought
that's funny.
Fine, it's not like a what is that? That Charles one? What do they call it? Like a Charles bar? Charleston shoe.
Charleston shoe.
Or like a Mars. Actually, so we did this awesome thing. We don't do big E stuff, but what we did was for our kids, we didn't do like the hunt and stuff. We got 3 Easter eggs, like the ones you fill. We filled one with candy, one was empty, and one had a $5 bill in it. And so the kids didn't know what was in it. And we just said, hey, they each took a turn. You can either be given the one with candy right now.
Yeah.
Or you can pick one of 3 just by looking at the outside, like without any information. So are you going to play the game and take a risk here? Or are you going to just take the candy and run?
Yeah.
So that was a fun time. And I'm inspired to have some gummy while we're talking.
There we go. So you're inspiring me now because we actually our kids are older. They're all teenagers now. And last night we come to the end of the night and they're like, we didn't do an Easter egg hunt. And we're like, we thought you guys were beyond that. Like you guys usually like, Easter eggs, but for some reason they were like, no, we missed that. I was like, okay.
No, 100%. It was the same thing.
Yeah. So I bought a bunch of Easter candy. Do you know what they don't have in stores right now? The eggs.
Oh, the eggs.
Oh, the eggs. No.
I've got like 8 eggs.
We went to a dollar store. We went to like a 7-Eleven,
Okay.
no eggs. Emily had to go to, my wife went to CVS to get some.
So we
eggs.
always have Easter at our house. We stuff all the eggs during the week. It takes us multiple days. Each year I get more eggs and more eggs. And I got 2 teenagers. I got an 18-year-old. They still get excited. I hide them all over our house, every level. It takes me forever to hide them. We had 400 eggs yesterday that hit around my house.
Oh man,
talking about?
There gets to be a point where I just like take lunchables and just throw them on the game shelves.
That's hilarious.
Easter wasn't like a thing I did as a kid, but we were out at getting lunch or breakfast like a weekend ago, 2 weekends ago, and some lady had a gigantic bag of just plastic eggs. I don't know what was in them. I don't know if my wife opened one, but she was like tucking them around town. Like she was just like walking around and like sticking it on the ground or in like plants. And I was
something fun.
You just had candy for kids to take like days later. What are you doing, lady?
I'm on the tip of like we need adult Easter egg hunting. Like we need that.
It's called geocaching. It's
geocaching.
That's true.
I don't want candy to geocache.
Yeah.
My candy. I didn't get to my candy.
Chad Elkins with some really bad advice here.
Robin's
best Easter candy, Robin's eggs. Full stop. That's bullcrap. That's nasty.
Ugh, Chad.
That's gross. What are you gonna?
Shout out to Chad.
So I love Reese's. Everything Reese's peanut butter cups, Reese's Pieces.
Yes.
The Reese's bars, like all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But you mentioned the peach rings. I do love gummy stuff. I love peaches. But we were talking about this today at work. As my coworker had the peach rings, I'm like, have you tried the gummy peaches? The actual, like the thick peaches. Those are the best peach candy.
Those are good.
They're hard to find. They're a little hard to find, the peach rings, but man, I had a lunch break when I was 16 years old working at the mall, and I'd go round the corner in the mall to the candy shop, get a pound of peaches and an orange soda, and I could eat that for lunch. Do that today.
There's your teeth.
Yeah. So Chad Elkins threatening violence. The good part is the show's only an hour long or less, and if Chad hits me up, it'll be an hour and a half. So you guys won't get to see him throw bows in my face.
Wow.
So and you guys are based in Columbus? Is that correct?
Yeah. So we're
Ryan
half from Chad.
Ryan.
Yeah. Oh, there. Dustin Faust, artist on Maul Peak, is in Ohio as well as Kim Robinson.
I'm in Columbus, Georgia.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm in Northwest Ohio, a couple hours from Columbus. So.
Okay. So Columbus, Ohio, not Ohio, Georgia. On the Ohio side, Dustin Faust, the artist of Maul Peak, and then Kim Robinson, the graphic designer on a bunch of our nature games, are out of Ohio.
Nice. AJ's got it right there. Starburst jelly beans. That was my candy of choice. If I'm going to binge a candy, Starburst jelly beans. There have been many years where I stock up and buy 4 or 5 bags of Starburst jelly beans, and I have them until October. So, yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Well, welcome to Candy Chat today.
I know, Candy Chat. So,
but we are talking about asymmetrical games.
We can do that too if you'd like. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
games.
We'll throw in games.
We thought the topic as well, but let's start easy. And it's funny because I thought this was easy, and then midday today I asked Ryan, I'm like, dude, I'm struggling to think of games I played asymmetrically as a youth, but then they started coming all at once. So the question was, what classic game or what kids game you were playing as a youth that had like asymmetrical roles or goals or something that was asymmetric to the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think the if we're going like kid age, for me, I feel in a way the heart of it, I mean, I don't know if this counts or not, but I think of it as asymmetric in a way, is Magic, like CCGs, right? Like it's not a classic board game that was asymmetric, but like in terms of coming to the table with just vastly different abilities and approaches, like where you it was just, a blue versus red or black, all the different colors. That was really the sort of head first dive into that kind of like, you don't know what they're going to do and they're doing something vastly different than you type of play. So that one really is what stood out to me the most. And really sort of capture that. Like I was also thinking of other classics, like early on for me, classic games are like standard, whether, like Monopoly, Scrabble, Uno, but I also was thinking about Stratego, not a game I would necessarily call asymmetric, but because you have your the setup, it has a little bit of that. You're not starting with the same game state vibe, but I don't think that falls into the category truly.
Yeah.
I have some other ones that were later on, but going back then, I think Magic to me was a standout one where you're just like,
one that I didn't play when I was a kid necessarily, like when I was like 12 years old, somewhere in there. But Scotland Yard was around during that time period. So
that's a good
Scotland Yard, you've got Mr. X, and so that person's trying to hide, and we've seen it done in other ways, like Last Friday and things like that. You've got this person who's wandering the board, and everybody else is trying to find them. And it reminds me of one of my favorite games as a child, Stop Thief. That was one of my most played games as a kid. I loved the ability of Stop Thief to make you think and process and try to figure out where the computer was, And
right.
I think Scotland Yard did that, but put a person behind it, which kind of changed. It was no longer an AI. It was somebody who was thinking and watching, and so
moving.
Yeah, I mean, on the digital side, not, but like so sort of fundamental. It's like all those old RTSs, right? Whether it's Warcraft or Starcraft or any of those earlier ones, where you had that like different vibe from the different factions and things like that.
Yeah.
How about on your side, sir?
Yeah, you read my mind because I was going with Magic also.
There you have it.
This was and I've talked about it on the show before. This was one of my go-to things in junior high. Started playing, and it was an easy game to play with friends. We play around the lunch table. We'd play. Heck, I had a buddy we played during 2-a-days during our lunch break during football practice, and everybody else was doing stupid stuff, and we just got out a deck of Magic cards and played in the locker room. And it's like you said, it was the like, what is the person across from me going to have? I have no idea, but can I beat them to the punch? And I love that about Magic. I still love that about Magic to this day. Like I dip in and out of it here and there very casually at the point, but man, I love that unknown that game makes.
Yeah.
Two quick Magic stories. One was first tournament I ever played in, like just started playing Magic, wanting to take a $5 go in at our local game store at the time, Dungeons and Dragons, and like I had just started, so I had the deck of 250 cards, right? It was basically it was all my cards, right? And you get in there and everyone's playing. I don't think it was 40s back then. It was like 60 cards exactly, like in sleeves. And I was playing this guy who was, he thought he was destined to win. And at some point, if those decks don't work and you're just sitting there not doing anything, but like you've got like infinite cards and like infinite life or whatever, like with the ring. Oh, like I had like all 5 rings of defense or whatever those old ones were.
Oh yeah, the circles.
Circles, right. And so I just decked him, and I didn't go on much further than that. But like he was so angry. The other thing is just playing Magic recently. Back when we were in office, a bunch of people were doing drafts and things like that, and I got back into it for a little while. All those things are still true when you play it again, but then you're also like, man, this game is really just oh, well, I drew and I didn't get what I needed, so
yeah.
Like that part of that game is still there as well.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere else. Yeah,
that's right. So
yeah, there's some good picks.
We're going to go into current asymmetric games, but Scotty Flake says loves Summoner Wars.
Oh, yeah.
So, Summoner Wars.
Yeah, so the question I had next in there, Ed, is as the designer, and we're going to talk a little bit about Maul Peak here, sitting on my this side. But as a designer,
kudos for the repping. I appreciate it. Live on Kickstarter, by the way, right now.
Yes. Oh yeah. We're gonna get into those weeds. But Skull Hollow is a good example of a game that I like. First time playing it was like, oh my gosh, this game is vastly two different sides on this board. How hard is it as a designer, do you think, to come up with asymmetrical roles in games?
I mean, it's interesting, right? Because, and certainly we should, Keith Mateka drove a lot of that design on Skull Hollow. But the impetus, like a lot of times asymmetric starts at the same place, right? Like if you're thinking about a game like, like a XCOM game, or like a, Narrow Hex, or like any game that's like just units on a map, and you're like, okay, here's the base or the Terran, they're like this, and then we're gonna like go this way with this one, and then we're gonna balance it. We're gonna go this way with this one, and we're gonna balance it. Skull Hollow's like what's that game called? Why am I forgetting the name? The one by Leader Games, but
Root.
Vast. No, the first.
Vast,
Well, Root
Vast,
2,
Vast.
but like I was thinking Vast. Where Skull Hollow is this one where you're like, the impetus was like, what would it be like to have like one person controlling like a bunch of units, and the other like a gigantic monster, sort of inspired by Shadow of the Colossus in a way, and like really pushing the differences of play and on like totally mechanically different, right? So they're not like sort of in the same zone, and one's just a little bit more like this, or one's a little bit more like this. It's really like, no, we want to have this gigantic monster play, and then this other one. And it's not like Skull Hollow was the first board game to ever do something like that. There's some older ones that have done that as well. But that was really sort of the starting point. And the story goes that my kid, I had was helping at their school with like a board game design class, and he wanted to make a baseball game where it was one player playing. Well, it wasn't baseball. Something where it was just like, I want to play a sports game where there's one player playing 19 other players or something like that, right? And it was like, you want a 20-person game where it's 19 people versus one person? And like, I was like, well, what if it was like somebody controlling a bunch? And we'll probably end up talking about it later, but I'm a huge Lord of the Rings Confrontations fan, for sure. But that idea of like jumping and having the Guardian board was really sort of the centerpiece when we started, where it was like, okay, want to be able to have units in a small space and then get them to jump onto the other unit and disabling abilities. I should have pulled them out, but like I have the old designs I did on it. The main thing also was I wanted to get rid. I didn't want to use dice, and I didn't want to use like sticks and measures. I didn't want to make it a miniatures game, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that exists and there's some cool things, but it's like heavy, and I wanted something fast, light, dynamic. And that's about as far as I got when I was struggling to make it fun. It was cool. The idea worked, but it wasn't like mechanically fun. And that's when I partnered with Keith, who worked on together on other stuff in the past. And, he knocked it out of the park with the dual action cards and sort of the dual ability cards with action points, and how it, the core system works for both the Guardian and the Foxen, or in the Maul Peak, the Bears, or the Grizzer. But they're so vastly different in terms of how you play.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. One of the things that impressed me so much about Skull Hollow is because we reviewed that years ago when it was first put out, and Skull Hollow is one of those games that once you teach it, you want to go back in as many times as you can to understand the nuance of the different Guardians, how you can use the Foxen clan's abilities to defeat a Guardian in a specific way. I love that, because you want to play it again immediately, but you got to think about it. I remember the first time Aaron and I played it, we sat down, we played on a Sunday morning, and then I was like, man, I lost really bad. Like, she was the Guardian, she just smashed me. And I was like, I lost really bad. Let's do this again, but hold on, I need another cup of coffee, and it's just one of those things that I want to think about, and I want to be like, okay, I could have done this better. What did I not use? What could I have used? How could I have done this? It's such a good game. So
thank you. And I do think it's a little underappreciated, the depth of strategy for both sides.
Yes.
It's interesting where, we wanted to make a game a little like chess. Not that it's like chess, but like with check, like, where you can just knock it, if you don't protect the king's out, the game's over, right? Like, it can end very quickly if you're not paying attention. Yep. And so there's a lot to how you're playing, the way you're against, because you have card draw, it's a pretty loose, set of abilities and action points that you're getting into your hand, right? And there's the prepare action. So it's not, it's got lots of tactics, but it's more about playing what you're getting and understanding sort of what you have in your hand, what the player's doing, where they are, how, like, there's a lot of dynamic tactics that come out of play. And I think there's a pretty big scale of learning you can gain, both on, the the Foxen side as well as the Grizzer side. Like this came up on the Kickstarter campaign, but I think it's fun. Like, so there's hordes of people who are like Foxen are overpowered, and then you have like the other side that are like the monsters. The guards are way overpowered, and then I think some of it is that it plays to different play habits and strengths, and like. So, like, you can have two people who are like, we played one side and then we flopped and we played the other, and Foxen won both sides. It's like, yeah, okay, well, I mean, that's what did Grach do, or what did Tanthos do, or whatever. So it's really, it's been interesting to see it develop over I don't know, the last few years. It's been out 3 years at this point, and it was super cool to be able to build out Maul Peak again with Keith, and start adding more interaction and paradigms with the Grizzer and the new Guardians, and seeing how well the system holds up. It holds up great to all of the new stuff.
Yeah,
awesome.
And just before we get it, we'll get into Maul Peak in just a few minutes.
Sure.
I'll save it for that, actually. So I'm going to catch up on comments here. So Chad says every time I play a game against Bob is asymmetrical. He's got no skills.
Wow.
Bob's getting beaten up in the comments. So Bob Kroll is a good friend of ours and writes for us at One More Family. Scotty Flake says Vast was the first game that really impressed me, with each player having such diverse objectives in order to win. So.
Right, and what you can do and how you can play, right? And I think one of that balance is right. Like, you have to read 4 different. Vast is fantastic, right? But it plays on that line of like, oh, I'm going to read this section of the rulebook, or I'm going to read this section of the rulebook, or I'm going to read that. A different asymmetric, by the way, just role-playing games, by the way, in terms of having a DM or a game master, and then the players, facing off versus whatever they throw at them. But no, those are some fantastic games, and this was a lot of these titles. Vast was sort of in the same zone as I mean, I think Vast was before Skull Hollow when it kickstarted, but like, it's been fun to watch Leader Games do all their awesome stuff. Well. So
cool.
Patrick,
so what's the next question we got, Isaac?
We threw out what has been a memorable experience for you with an asymmetrical game. So something I like to kind of think about, those wow moments, right? Like a game of sidekicks, we talk about the games we like with the people we love, and the people make up the games for me, right? Like, and so has there been any particular asymmetrical game, ones we mentioned, maybe something else that you're like, that was just like a wow moment, like Aaron beating up on you, basically?
Yeah. Just getting torched.
I mean, there's so many wow moments. I think the one that stands out, and I'll talk about this game a lot because it had a ton of influence on Skull Hollow, but me as in general. Lord of the Rings: The Confrontation, right? I mentioned it earlier. Not so much on the asymmetric side, though it's there. The thing that blew me away about that game was, it's sort of like Stratego with player abilities. It's sort of asymmetric, sides from Lord of the Rings, but it does such an amazing job. The thing that just floored me about that game was how the way that the mechanics of the different units work creates these interesting dynamics that like are thematic to the story in a way that like feels like as like, so like Frodo's slippery. If you go to attack him, he's got a free dodge. You have arrow, different people can set Boromir can sack himself. Yeah. Boromir. But like as you're playing, the way the different sides and the different characters are acting, or it's like how they would behave in the movie, right? Or the book, but it's not, that was written, but the mechanics make it so that they play in that behavior. So for me, that was like, it's so well done. It's so makes Frodo feel like Frodo and Sam feel like Sam. That to me, that was just like, wow, you can bring out, it was so awesome how it brought out the narrative of a story through mechanics of competitive play, which floored me at the time. I thought that was awesome.
That's really cool.
Have you played that, Ryan?
I have not. I'm not. I get a lot of people suggesting Lord of the Rings games for me, and I'm not a big enough fan to like jump into all the games, because I feel like there's a level of fandom there in a lot of the games that I would completely not. I would miss it completely because I'm not a big enough fan.
That's fair for a lot of the Lord of the Rings stuff, and even the like later editions of the Confrontation, the deluxe edition, they added a bunch of stuff, but the base version is literally Stratego.
Okay.
But each unit has just a couple more interesting abilities. It's an abstract game, other than like the theme's there and the mechanics make it work, but it isn't drenched in fiction. But anyway, it's a great game. I can't not recommend that game.
Yeah,
don't let the Lord of the Rings scare you away from playing that game.
There we go. Yeah, I love the story. It's just I'm not a big enough. I know I have so many friends in my life that they're huge Lord of the Rings fans, so they know everything, and they make like these nerdy jokes about things that I'm like, I have no clue what you're saying. So
I just looked it up because I wanted to see a picture of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Wasn't familiar. That's a Reiner and Eric Lang design game. Like that's
really
that alone. I'm like, okay, maybe I need to.
Interesting.
I if I'm not mistaken, and sometimes I am, I think the original was Reiner only.
Okay.
Could be mistaken.
Okay.
And then Eric came in on the deluxe and expanded it out, which is also really great. It's also really.
Yeah, on Board Game Geek, it just lists like three designers,
both talented people. But I think the original, if you like get the classic version with the thin Stratego pieces, I think that was
all Reiner.
Reiner instead of trying to struggle on the last name. Cool. And then I think Eric came in when we built it out because it was a real big hit. And the deluxe versions, it's one of those weird things. It's super cool. They added all these variations and options, like really awesome. But then they did this thing where they made the pieces bigger. And then they
look huge in the picture. I saw.
They're
Holy
huge,
cow.
And you knock them over by mistake, which is like a travesty in that game. But it was. I've played both versions. I like them. I don't have it in front of me. I stick to the classic one more, but it's a great game for sure.
Cool. I think one of my memorable moments with an asymmetric game would have to be last Friday. I had invited a group of guys to come over, and I told them about this game it was basically Jason. It was basically a Friday the 13th game that did not have a license. You play the maniac and you hunt down these campers. And so it was probably in the fall at some point. I got some guys from work to come over and we were going to play. And so I remember my son watching us play and loving it. And he was like, I want to play it next weekend. And I was like, okay, I'll get some more people over next weekend. So I invited a couple other friends over the next weekend, and he's probably 13 or 14 at this point. And he was like, I want to be the maniac. And I was like, Bud, do you know what you can do and how you can do it and all this stuff? And I was like, I feel bad because I feel like I'm almost going to have to step away from the game to kind of help him out. No, that's not what happened. That dude went on a murderous rampage, hiding and killing my friends. It was a lot of fun to watch because.
What's the name of the game?
Last Friday. It is I just put it back on the shelf, but it's way over there. It's Ares Games made it a couple of years ago. Actually, a second edition actually just got published at the end of last year with some slight rule updates and stuff. It's not the greatest game, but it is a really, really good use of that theme of campers and hunting down the campers, and the campers are trying to get to their cabins and lock themselves in the cabins before the maniac gets them. And so it's a really solid game if you can get the right people to play. I think the thing I don't like about last Friday in particular is that it breaks it up kind of like in chapters. So the best way to play the game is to play the game 4 times with slightly different rules, which makes it about a 3.5 hour game. And that's not doable for a lot of people.
Have you ever played Monster Slaughter?
Yes. I like Monster
Slaughter.
Slaughter.
Yeah, it's the different monster factions, and
Yep.
you're all trying to get the kids.
Yeah.
But the that one was that one's like a lot of like big fun, big. The art is fabulous in that game. But this is, I thought when you were describing, I was like, is that game? No, but it was. But
no, I know that because the miniatures in that game are fantastic. The artwork is amazing. You've got this 3D board that's a cabin.
It was ridiculous.
So good. If anybody out there is listening or is watching and says, I've got Monster Slaughter and sitting on my shelf, I'd pay you for it. Not
those are the guys from Ankama Games did that one.
Yes, I love it. I just can't pay that price for it. So it's like $80.
Fair.
So
yeah, it's fair. Yeah, who knows? Someday.
Someday.
Yeah, for me, this is the game that I picked up at Origins. My son loves to play board games with me. Our whole family does, and I shouldn't say just my son, but my son is my go-to. Hey, I got Maul Peak in. He sees the art. He's like, is that the same as Skull Hollow? I'm like, real close. We sit down, play it. He's like, yeah, I was gonna play video games with my friends, but get it on the table. Let's play it. And
there we go.
Like my son is my gaming guy, and he's been that way since he's been super young. And we started going to Origins. I want to say this game probably came out in 2015 or so. So he was probably 7 or 8, and he could run tables running around chasing people in Spectre Ops.
That's a popular one.
I love this game. Like, I love the futuristic theme of it. I love the push-pull. I know it's got the Scotland Yard, the Fury of Dracula, the same, like you were just talking about with last Friday, the one versus many. But like, I love the hunter and the huntee, right? And the fact that the hunter is are the many, right? So that the many are trying to go after that huntee, and you're just trying to escape. Like, I love the escape aspect of this game. Just get in, steal the loot, and get out. And it's Emerson makes just amazing games as it is, and this one was a game that every time we played it, it was just funny to watch. You figure you got him, and then you're just like, nope, he's not there.
You're gonna have to teach that to me when we show up at Origins this year, because
I will add it to
I've
my
never
list.
played it, but I've watched people and heard people on podcasts talk about it a lot. So
it's a blast. The original is where it's at for that one.
Very cool. So, Edo, tell us about Maul Peak. Maul Peak is the follow-up to Skull Hollow, a game that is one of the best 2-player only games out there. It has such a dynamic feel.
For sure.
Where you've got these amazing guardians that you get to choose from that all have different abilities. None of them feel the same, and then you come in and you put out this follow-up game, and it feels even more different, but has some of the same mechanics as the original. So tell us about Maul Peak and what people can expect.
Yeah, and it's certainly taken some time. I mean, Maul Peak, Skull Hollow probably was on Kickstarter 3 or 4 years ago, released I think 3 years ago. So it's been both a mixture of the development time and working on it, as well as just pandemic stuff and all that kind of thing. But we Keith and I and Pens Games really have always loved Skull Hollow, and from making the original, which was a very really strong Kickstarter for Pens Games, knew we wanted to do another, and dove into it pretty quickly in terms of starting to think about it. And what was really interesting is it sort of became two conversations. One was like very product directional. Are we gonna do we just want to make another faction like we have, or we have the Foxen? Do we just want to make a deck for the bears or the grizzly, or which we were talking about all sorts of animals at the time, but is it just you can add it in and then fight the original guardians? Do we want to make a little guardian pack or a big guardian pack with 2 extra guardians? And we went through all these sort of discussions and permutations around thank you for linking the Kickstarter, but permutations around how to fit and shape it. And the more we talked about it and got into it, the more it became clear that what we really wanted to do was bring in this full new layer of guardians and a new culture or faction, the Grizzer, and So it was like very clear, like, okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna make this standalone sequel. We're gonna like make a full equivalent product, but it's set in a different. This is set in Maul Peak, which is this winter's mountainous, different monsters. We've got the Grizzer, which are the bears, and it just sort of went from there. And then what was really interesting was, and I think as we think about it, we do in different ways. But one of the things we did first was just sort of like, let's just come up with these cool Guardians. Like when we were doing the original Guardians, right? Like had all sorts of ideas and mechanics to use and things that stuck. And like we just had just gigantic spreadsheet of ideas. And so we started, like we really wanted to do a Spider Guardian in the first one and we didn't. So like we attacked that. And then we were looking around at, what could be fun. And, the Guardians are always a single unit. So what would it be like if we had, two, Guardian player who had two, factions and stuff, or two Guardians, which turned into Trovac and Nara, which are these two. And so we just, we just started having fun. And then, that's Veblen. What's so cool about Guardian creation is you have the Guardian and you have its abilities, right? And you can do all these fun things with the abilities, but then you have the Guardian board, which has the map of how the abilities, how many hit points they have, how it has to connect. So you've got like the Guardian puzzle, you have their abilities, you have their victory condition, and it's like super fun design space. Like, it takes a lot of testing, but it's a really fun design space.
Yeah.
And then the other thing we felt really strongly about, when we were early on with Keith, thinking about the hero side or the animal side, was just to make sure it felt different, right? Like really looking at like what, how does the card play work for, like, you can't actually play the Grizzer versus the Foxen. But if you were to play the Grizzer versus the Foxen, they play very differently. They have a completely different dynamics. And, they, mechanically they function a little closer than the Guardians, but they really, the Foxen, you draw from the deck into your hand. So you have this constant refill. If they get, defeated, they just go back into the, you're cycling your cards, and half of your cards are Foxen and half are action cards. And so there's sort of a hand management. Getting more Foxen to the table means you'll have more action cards in your hand, and they've got power, so you can invest in a single character, but they're very flimsy, so they can get killed quickly, and there's sort of a risk in that investment. Whereas the bears, the Grizzer, we said, okay, well, we talked about a variety of 7 things we're not doing, but may come in the future, right? Like all sorts of different ideas, right? But like, well, what if they were there and you summon them into play, right? What, a little bit more like magic, right? A little bit more like you have a resource, and that resource is bringing them into play,
right?
And then what if there was only one of each, right? Suddenly there's a lot more risk, not in power getting sucked off the board, but in a Grizzer getting defeated,
right?
And early Grizzer was just like powerful and had tons of hit points and just crushed everything, right? Like you could take them versus the ogre, and so then you got to sort of not give them weaknesses, but give them balance, and so that's the cost to bring them in. And when you're playing the Grizzer, one of the things we saw with a lot of the reviewer copies we sent out is like it has a really fun learning curve as you learn. Like some of the combos pop out to you with the Grizzer. Immediately, like, oh, you're like, I'm going to use that channel ability to get tons of rage, and then I'm going to push it into a winter beast. Like, duh. But like that works until your shamans, your what you call it, the herbalist is killed, or or your winter beast isn't there anymore because your druid's gone, or like whatever. And so it's like it's just very different, and like very much about more in the Grizzer, thinking about what sort of subset of the Grizzer you're going to go for and how you're going to leverage it, and then reacting to the Guardian. I mean, so anyway, like it's you can play it on its own as a standalone, straight up, just buy it off the shelf or back it on Kickstarter and play it. But then, the other thing which we always wanted to do was make it compatible with the original game. So make it so that you can play the two of them. Foxen versus New Guardians or Grizzer versus Old Guardians. And, it was so cool to be able to do that. Like the amount of life it brings into both titles to have both games is substantial. And then I don't know if you had a chance to play the Battle for Boar, but like we were like, whoa, let's just see if we can make this work for 3 or 4 players.
It's like a Smash I only Brothers got level. I didn't get Isaac. Have you played the 4-player?
No.
Okay.
We had it ready to go last week, and life gets in the way, right? But
yeah,
it's
I was
still hoping to get them together.
When the Smith family from the Family Gamers came down to visit, they did a little vacation, came and visited us. They actually gotten their copy from you a couple days earlier, so we were able to play their copy. Had a great time with it. I actually played the Spider.
That one
starts with a V. The Spider Guardian. Yeah. So I was doing so well in the beginning, and I felt so good. And I'm like, oh, I'm doing really good, and I've already captured.
You got to get rid of those Grizzer if they build up.
As soon as Andrew started getting those Grizzards like onto, I was like, oh, this is not looking good. Why are you climbing all over me? And I'm trying to shake them, and I'm running away, and I'm just like, this is going to end so poorly for me. But it was such a fun time. And I told Aaron, I said, I hate that we don't have another way to play this. But then immediately I said, it just makes me want to play Skull Hollow more and more. I mean, it's such a great property that whichever one you play, you look at it and you're like, I just want more of this,
Yeah, and I definitely ran into that trying to play it the same way as Skull Hollow, thinking I was going to just cycle my heroes. And then you start realizing, wait, I got nobody left. And because I used them as glass cannons, I went in and I didn't play the strategy as much, right? I was just trying to just fire them off.
Which is, it's interesting. I mean, and it's something that is always a balance when you're having games with learning depth, right? What is that initial play experience? What is it as you get better at the game? And then how do you make it work in both cases? So like an example, and we continue to tune Saboso, the ice monster here. We found that he was tuned, if you were an expert Grizzer player, that huge guy, if you're an expert Grizzer player, there's a lot of things you can do that are really powerful, with like knowing cost, how to pop somebody out with a bunch of rage and get them into play, you leveraging the extra leap from the rage. Like there's like a lot of things in there that you learn how to do, which makes you very effective. But like if you haven't picked that up yet, Saboso, he's not, Greg, he had a couple of action points. Saboso's got 3. So Saboso just comes in and he's like stunned, knocked, taken. I'm going to pick this guy up and put him in my icy chest. And you're just like, what just happened? I was like, what just happened? And, what we had to do on some of that retooling was look at ways to still have Saboso feel like it has the agency and the ability to do what it was doing and have the combos, but create a little bit more room where it's not like in the player space instantly. And what's interesting is sometimes you can make changes, like in this case where the net actually is more fun for both players. So like, by removing a little bit of Saboso's agency, but not his action or its action, it gave the Saboso player more opportunities to feel smart by setting something up, a combo, rather than a combo just being available in front of them, without necessarily reducing the capability of like taking on the fox. So it's and then when you're going back to it's a huge matrix. Like Justin DeBaker, who's been an awesome doing awesome play testing and development on Maul Peak. When you're like every okay, so you have the Foxen versus the 8 Guardians, right? But then you have 4 leaders on the Foxen, right? So that's, if you're thinking about how each leader impacts that, right? That's a huge set. And then you have the Grizzer versus the 8 Guardians, but then the Grizzer have the Winter Beast, which is not exactly like the leaders, but a specific unit where there's 6 different ones that can come in that like have wildly different buff abilities you can use, which like are vastly different. Like one can like let you move the Guardian around, which is super powerful. Another one lets you draw cards. Another one lets you band people and move them very quickly. Another one fly, like all sorts of things. And so, you know, it's just gigantic matrix. And then you're like, you know what we're going to do? Now we're going to put them on top of each other. So you can do Saboso and Grak versus, you know, this leader and that leader. You know, and it gets a little crazy, but
somewhere along the way, you find out that this group can't beat this group, and somewhere along the way, you find out that this group is way powerful against this group. So it's
So what our sort of operating table was. Within each box, it's got to be great, right? So Maul Peak, it's all got to be like that's great. And then like if we found that there was a mismatch when it came to fighting between the groups, we wouldn't necessarily solve it directly. With that way, that in that case, we might add an ability, like we have a pamphlet for like a small manual that is like, here's how you mix the games. And there's like these places where it's like, hey, this rule that like Grak victory condition is killing 9 foxes or defeating 9 foxes. There aren't even 9 bears. So like it's not, you can't do it. So you have to sort of think about how that works mechanically with each other. And then, you know, I think the balancing point for Keith and I on you know, like something you have to sort of accept about Skull Hollow and Maul Peak to a degree is you want it to be tight, dynamic play. And even like Skull Hollow actually was so tight at times that it felt a little bit back and forthy, and we've actually tried to improve that in Maul Peak. But it really is about those awesome moments, like that feeling of knocking out an ability that he was about to use and almost winning, and then he didn't, but then you defeat him, or like that sort of really evocative play where you're like the combination of the strength of the abilities and some of the card draw and randomness and surprise is like, does he have what it takes? Did I just lose, or am I going to survive this one round to win? In some ways, like, if you scrub out all chance and you scrub out all dynamics, then like you can't have as powerful of those moments. So I think part of really enjoying both of these titles is like what the system brings to life in those regards, like with the dual action cards where you have different choices. So you know, I mean, it's awesome to work on a game you enjoy so much, right? Like I mean, I played all these games so many times in versions that didn't ever need to see the light, but like, you know, I have fun whenever I play it.
That's really good. So very cool. So everybody, check out the Maul Peak campaign. We linked it in the comments live, and it runs through April 26th. So make sure that you jump on that campaign.
The final week. It's been really exciting. Normally we do 2-week campaigns. I actually did 3 for this one. What today's Monday, right? What time is it?
Today's Monday.
Tuesday. Monday. I have no
Today's
clue.
Monday. Today's Monday. So 1 week and a few hours.
Round in the corner.
Check it out. Yeah.
Definitely. So we're talking about our top asymmetric board game. Edo, what do you have for your top asymmetric board? One of your favorites.
You know, I mean, we ended up talking about it a bit, but for me, like easily the Confrontation is just so good, and I highly recommend it. But there was a period where even, you know, I regularly play it, but we did it was like a, that isn't the right word, but it like stormed through our office at a company called Mind Control Software, and like everyone was playing it, and like we even to the point where we had office tournaments, and like it's when you get to a point when you're playing a game like you've played it hundreds of times, thousands of times, like you just you reach this other sort of understanding with it. And so and like then it's like you sort of, the game melts away, and then you're like, what is Adam gonna do right now? And or Lou or Thomas, like how do they normally play? Now you're playing the mind game with the person you're playing more than you know,
I love that.
But so for easy, I mean, Magic's a huge one, but like for me, from a board game, I mean, I put that game in my top 10 games easily.
Awesome.
I like Skull Hollow 2 and Maul Peak, but like if I'm picking a different one,
that's cool.
Speaking of game that Ryan's played hundreds of times.
Yeah, so I've got to go. One of my favorite Asymmetric games. It's got to be Unmatched. We play a lot of Unmatched over here. Most of it's intentionally. Sometimes it's because we started a thing called Friday Night Fight during the start of the pandemic, and it was because my wife Erin, and I really missed having people come over and play games at our house, and so we started live streaming our Friday night Unmatched nights. We would just sit here with a cup of coffee or something, and we'd play Unmatched for 30 minutes, and we'd stream it. And it became a thing where community built up around it, and we have everything Unmatched. I mean, we're fully invested in this thing. We have all that there is to have right now, and as new stuff comes out, we buy it immediately. We love the series. We love how even in the most mismatched situations, it is still a joy to play. Even when you're going to lose because you have the weaker fighter or you have a disadvantage because of what map you're on, it's still so much fun to play. And so anybody could be like, I'll pick your fighter and you play Unmatched. I will do it 100% of the time. So
another great game that like a precursor to Unmatched, I think, for sure. Have you ever played Raptor?
Yes, I love Raptor. Raptor. That's one of those games you were saying that sometimes people say, well, this is unbalanced or this or this. When we first bought Raptor, my wife played the scientists, and she was like, the scientists are too weak. They're just too weak. They're just not good enough. The Raptors are always going to win. So I flipped the board. I said, let's do this. And then she walked away with a completely different outlook. She was like, oh, no, I see, and it's like that. You have to play the other sides to understand that there's a lot of balancing that happens, and there's a lot of ways to win,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, there's a Raptor comment there.
I love Raptor so much.
Southern Fried Gaming Expo.
Yep. Southern Fried Gaming Expo. They had a swap meet at a bar in Atlanta. We missed it this year. We were celebrating Easter with some family out of town, and so I hate that I missed it. But Raptor is really good.
Speaking of that, Ryan, the Origins flea market just went live this week. So
did it? Okay.
Yeah, if you're gonna sell anything,
I've got two piles of games right over there. So, yeah. So what's your game, Isaac?
I mean, I love Skull Hollow. We've talked a little bit about that and Maul Peak, and we've talked about Vast, which I enjoy Vast, but it's not my favorite game. But man, there's just something about the way the base version of Root works, like the Irie, the cats, the Vagabond, the fact that each one, like, it's an area control game, but then for some of the characters it's not, right? The Irie is about how well you can manage that card play on your board, right? And like there's just something beautiful about those base, and I have the expansions, and some of the expansions I enjoy,
sure.
but I just love the interaction of those original 4 characters and how well that push and pull is around the table, and how you have to know what's going on around the board in that game. Like, you can't sleep on other characters, and I love how well balanced out Root puts all that together.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, those folks at Leader Games, they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Before we move on to our last question of the night, I do want to point out it's not often that asymmetry is introduced to a game later on, but Viral the Hive is it's the expansion to Viral, the board game. This is really, really good. It gives you asymmetric abilities for your specific virus, and everybody has these 4 new things that are available to them, and it gives you I think it vastly improves the base game, and I think it actually makes the 2-player. I hated 2-player viral. It was not fun. It was not good. There was a third hand. I think it was that dummy hand element didn't work for me. This changes it just enough that this game is excellent at 2 players now, and the asymmetry adds so much to the game that it just brought it back to life. So viral
no,
Hive.
it's a great call. I haven't actually played that one, but yeah, I mean, I think there's different ranges of asymmetry and when you introduce it and how far when you design it, but it's certainly a really fun way to make the games feel compelling and different and varied when you play, right?
Yep. So, all right, awesome. Last question of the night. What are we playing? So, what have you been playing?
What have I been playing? That is a great question. I've been playing a lot of Maul Peak and Skull Hollow. That has got to be the highest there. And then it's funny. I do the I have the Gaming with Edo YouTube channel, right? Yeah. So a lot of times I'll end up that will drive a lot of my play. So like Seven Wonders Architects was a recent game.
Yeah, so good.
A Crash Octopus.
I want to play Crash Octopus so bad.
Yeah, it's well done. It's well done.
Yeah,
I have slowly working through the exit the game advent calendar. It turns out that like there's sometimes too much gaming, and if you're not like if you're not like committed to it every day, suddenly you're like, oh man, there's still 20 days left. But that's a really great one. The other thing is I have Decorum, which I'm excited to play, but haven't played yet. But
I keep seeing it pop up. It's Decorum's on my list of I need to play it. So enough people are talking about it that I feel like I need to play that one. So
Chad's got an interesting game he's playing there.
Oh yeah, Chad playing Connect One solo.
Not solo.
Not going well. I can't seem to win. Poor Chad.
Hard solo games are great. I think I mean, it's all different types of fun, right?
Yeah.
There's so many games now. It's sort of crazy.
There was a solo game. There was a solo roll and write game called Island Alone that was on Kickstarter a couple weeks ago. It was actually really fun. It's a print and play only Kickstarter, and it was really.
Those solid. Have actually Steve Finn, Dr. Finn's Games. He's done a lot of our nature line. He has done a couple of those print and play, or at least one of those print and play Kickstarters as well. Nice. It's an interesting way to have fun, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
And it's affordable. It's for the person who is trying to get into Kickstarter or maybe hesitant to. I'm not backing a $300 game, but I'll back this $10 game that I know I can print off. So.
Oh, totally.
We got to play some Wavelength over Easter weekend with my in-laws. I really enjoy it.
I love it.
Wavelength it's so funny to pair off teams and see what they come up with, and then just see how wildly bad you do at this game. So it's a lot of fun. Wavelength it got to the table this weekend. I'm glad that we took some time to play as a family. So
yeah, it's one of my favorite party games. I love it.
It's good.
We've been playing a bit of this. I'm not pandering to Chad because he's in here, but oh my gosh, like I never played Raw originally.
Yeah.
Wasn't exposed to it back when it first came out, but man, this has got to be my favorite Reiner game I've ever played.
Really
I love
good.
the depth of this thing and how quick. I mean, on and off the table in 20-30 minutes. We've played it 2-player, 3-player, 4-player. Man, and aesthetically, this game, I mean, it's Ian O'Toole artwork. I'm excited about that. Like, it's going to be a fun one. We've been playing that.
The pieces of that, my prototype sitting right over there, but the pieces just for the prototype are incredible. So,
and I got to throw in, because this is one of my wife's favorite games. We've been playing quite a bit of Whatnot Cabinet.
Nice.
I mean, if you go down the list of the aesthetically pleasing games that you guys put out, like if I have anything that comes from Pencil First and my wife sees it, she's like, I want to play it.
You want to see something cool for a second?
I always want to see something cool.
Since I literally have it here. So this, if you haven't seen it, this is the Sunset Over Water Pocket Edition.
Oh man, I love my Herbaceous Pocket Edition.
Yeah, it's like that, and so same stuff. All the cards.
Oh, same type of style.
Yeah. Where's the? Hold on. Let me see if I have. So for the first time, pencil first game. So the art still works. Smaller.
That's cool.
So
I love it.
For the first time, Pencil First Games is releasing 2 games direct to retail, not Kickstarter. One is this pocket. Well, actually, this one's not. This is from pencilfirstgames.com, but the other is Delicious. And so this
looks really good.
Yeah, it's a flip and write. It's got the pads. It's a flip and write, but you're actually drawing and filling your garden with all these different fruits.
That's so cool.
And you guys will get a kick out of this because one of the things, this was sort of pulled together with Steve over the pandemic.
Okay.
And like one of the core design missions of it was making it so that everyone could print their own sheets if they wanted, and everything that you need to like play on, like off your sheet, like all the common components that you'd get in the box can fit like really easily in like like a 1x2 little space, like basically can fit on camera super easy.
Correct.
So
yeah,
it's intended to be like, even if you just like tilt your laptop screen down to get it on camera, that was like the baseline. So those are actually gonna be hitting. Well, I'm approving these, or I'm making a few comments, and then hopefully approving these, and then we will hopefully be on a ship soon. And
it's awesome.
June-ish.
That'll be cool.
So so that I think
I love
the One Academy.
Just seeing what you guys have previewed with Delicious. It looks so good. Floriferous was I bought Floriferous for my wife for Christmas this year, and it was one of those almost last minute gifts when you guys were doing your pencil first day, where
the celebration stuff. Sure.
Yeah, celebration. The little tin. I went ahead and jumped in that day.
There you go. Got the tin
for my wife and got the exclusive tin. Floriferous. We're 20 something plays in, and we've just had it since December. And so it is.
That's some good mileage.
Amazing game.
We should recognize that Keith Mateka jumped in too.
Yes.
So obviously,
oh yeah. See Keith. How's it going, Keith?
Maul Peak and Ocala, but also took on the. He did solo for Floriferous as well as the Whatnot Cabin and a number of, all the ones prior to that. So he's awesome.
You talk about candy, right? Round our aesthetically.
Candy.
Well, I mean, aesthetically, the candy, like those games are just like they just draw the eye in. They get to the table. Like, I mean, I can't tell you how much, because Ryan, you're in the same boat with Aaron, where like sometimes my wife wants to play a game, but she's like, I want something that's gonna take like 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't want a deck of cards, like something that I'll enjoy and we can still talk, and the man.
Yeah, talk while you play.
Those fit right in there.
Yeah. Floriferous is the one for us. We had a double date on Friday night as I was starting to feel better from being sick last week, and Friday night we went out and we sat out at a outdoor coffee shop, and people are just like looking like, what are they playing? What are they doing?
What was that?
So, oh man, so good,
perfect,
awesome.
Perfect. So,
I appreciate y'all playing the games.
Yeah, definitely. We love it. So Rick's in the comments. Ryan is always on a boat with Aaron. They live on a boat. So
Rick, go away.
Live streaming straight from my boat. So
Awesome.
Anyway, Maul Peak on Kickstarter through the 26th. Be sure to jump into that campaign. It is a really, really good game. I only got to play it once, but Edo's played it like 1,000 times. So.
We've played it a lot. Actually, we had another. We continue to go through playtests. We had Keith and I and a couple. Justin, all we're going to play tomorrow, but we had to cancel. So, not tomorrow. But we've been playing it. We played a lot. We played all the time.
Yes. And as far as content from us, you can find One Board Family at oneboardfamily.com. You can find our site. It has not been updated lately because I've been stupid sick. Like no content for like a week. It's been like straight 10
Shame on you.
days since I've made content.
Glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, I was so sick. It's so weird because I never got COVID. Our 3 children ended up getting COVID at the beginning of this year, but I didn't get COVID throughout that whole period of time. But I also didn't get sick for the past 2 years. So
yeah, I haven't been sick in 2 or 3 years, man.
Yeah, so it's like I told my wife, I was like, the last time I had a cold was December of 2019, and so when it hit me, I had a sinus infection, and I was like, it hit me so hard. Like I never ever take time off of work, and I was forced to take time off of work. It was really bad. But check us out at One Board Family. And what about you, Isaac?
Game of Sidekicks. You can find us at all of the socials on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, over at TikTok. Continue to be making content over there, having a good time in that community. Again, if you haven't got on Board Game TikTok, check it out. There's some fun stuff going on over there. We've got some recent reviews up. Did some work on the Dark Quarter for Lucky Duck, which is out right now as well, with our Maul Peak preview that we did, and did some content on TikTok for that as well. So lots of fun stuff out there.
Awesome. And Pencil First
Thanks
Games.
so much for having me. Yes.
Edo, tell everybody Pencil First Games. You got to go check out like everything you guys
I
do.
mean, Maul Peak Kickstarter, but like, I don't know, pencilfirstgames.com, we have these adventure games with Maul Peak, Skull Hollow, Lift Off, Heroes Welcome, and then on the nature side, we have Herbaceous Foliferous, Sunset Over Water, the Whatnot Cabinet, all of these games. So you can check all that out at pencilfirstgames.com just to find out more about it, or actually there's a web store there as well. And then my YouTube channel is Gaming with Edo, and that's game reviews and a lot of sort of but like industry, board game, Kickstarter, publisher type advice and content. Bunch of Q&As as well.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for coming on, and we will talk to you later. Have a good one.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a good night.